Creative people are often described as right-brained and analytical people as left-brained. But a new study calls that theory a myth. Researchers at the University of Utah found no scientific evidence to back that up. Dr. Gayatri Devi is a clinical associate professor of neurology at New York University and joins us at the table to sort it all out. Good morning to you, Dr. Devi. I'm thinking, doctor, now do we have to change everything that we've been taught to believe all these years?
Well, I think you've got to think twice about it.
Which side of the brain should we use? Sorry.
So this study really looked at over 1,000 people as they were lying quietly or reading, and it found that everyone really used both sides of the brain. So there was never one person or one group of people who exclusively used more the left side or more the right side. It was really task dependent.
But for certain tasks, we can spend more time on one side or the other, is what you're saying.
That's right. So that if somebody is more artistic, say, then they would more likely use the right side of the networks within the right side of the brain. So it's about what networks you use. There are networks for language, there are networks for artistic ability, there's networks for math. So depending on what networks you use, you'll use one side of the brain more than the other.
So do brains differ whether you're an artist or whether you're a mathematician?
Not at all. We all have the same brain. We may be running different programs at different times. So that, you know, I find this, for example, in women who are traditionally much better with language.
Yes.
Traditionally, and men are traditionally arguably much better with directions. But if you notice, men are far more reluctant to ask for directions when they're lost. And I think that that may be because they don't really use both. They're not generally using both networks at the same time, which is more helpful.
Or they're just trying to be macho. They're just trying to be macho.
That's true,
We wouldn't do that.
Yeah, never that.
Why do you think then, I mean, boy, this is interesting. Why do you think then that some people are more artistic? I mean, if we're not sort of programmed within the brain to lead one way or another, then how do we get there?
Well, we develop certain networks, and really the artistic network needs both sides of the brain. So for example, there are people who have what are called split brain syndromes, where both sides of the hemispheres, both brain hemispheres are disconnected from each other. So you give them a quarter, say, in their left hand, and their right side, their artistic side of the brain, figures out it's a quarter. But then that information has to cross over to the left side of the brain. But it doesn't, because the hemispheres are split, and therefore they can't tell you that it's a quarter. And if art is really about communication, about your emotions, so if you're not able to do that, then you're not much of an artist, are you? So you really always have to use both sides of your brain in order to be a functional human being, in order to be able to navigate society.
I think we just should be glad that we have a brain. The worst thing you want is it to be called a no-brain person.
Right.
That is
so
true.
Left or brain. So what you're saying now, I'm so fascinated by this, because we're saying there's no such thing as left or right. We just both use both sides all the time.
That is correct, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Devi.
Well, thanks for having me.